Okay, hi there, Brian. We're going to carry on reading Paddington Chapter 2. We start here. Don't fuss so, Mary, grumbled Mr. Brown, settling himself down in the armchair with a newspaper. He's probably having the time of his life. Mr. Brown was fairly near the truth when he said that. Paddington was probably having the time of his life. Unfortunately, it wasn't in quite the way he meant it. Blissfully unaware that his fate was being decided, Paddington was sitting in the middle of the bathroom floor drawing a map of South America with a tube of Mr. Brown's shaving cream. Paddington liked geography. At least he liked his sort of geography, which meant seeing strange places and new people. Before he left South America on his long journey to England, his Aunt Lucy, who was a very wise old bear, had done her best to teach him all she knew. She had told him all about the places he would see on the way, and she had spent many long hours reading to him about the people he would meet. It had been a long journey, halfway around the world, and so Paddington's map occupied most of the bathroom floor and also used up most of Mr. Brown's shaving cream. With the little that was left, he tried writing his new name again. He had several attempts, finally decided on Paddington. It looked most important. It wasn't until a trickle of warm water landed on his nose that he realized the bath was full, was beginning to run over the sides. With a sigh, he climbed up on the side of the bath, closed his eyes, held his nose, and with one paw jumped. The water was hot and soapy and much deeper than he had expected. In fact, he had to stand on tiptoe even to keep his nose above the surface. It was then that he had a nasty shock. It's one thing getting into a bath, it's quite another getting out, especially when the water comes up to your nose and the sides are slippery and your eyes are full of soap. He couldn't even see to turn the laps off. He tried calling out help, first in quite a quiet voice, then very loudly, help, help. He waited for a few moments, but no one came. Finally, he had an idea. What a good thing he was still wearing a hat. He took it off and began bailing out the water. There were several holes in the hat because it was a very old one that had once belonged to his uncle. But if the water didn't get much less, at least it didn't get any more. That's funny, said Mr. Brown, jumping up from his wheelchair and rubbing his forehead. I could have sworn I felt a spot of water. Don't be silly, dear. How could you? Mr. Brown, busy with her knitting, didn't even bother to look up. Mr. Brown grunted and returned to his newspaper. He felt he had felt something, but there was no point in arguing. He looked suspiciously at the children, but both Judy and Jonathan were busy writing their letter. How much does it cost to send a letter to Lima? Asked Jonathan. Judy was about to reply when another drop of water fell down from the ceiling, this time right onto the table. Oh gosh, she jumped to her feet, pulling Jonathan after her. There was an ominous sweat patch right over their heads, right underneath the bathroom. Where are you going now, dear? Asked Mrs. Brown. Oh, just upstairs to see how Paddington's getting on. Judy pushed Jonathan through the door and shut it quickly behind them. Crikey, said Jonathan, what's up? It's Paddington, cried Judy over her shoulder as she rushed upstairs. I think he's in trouble. She ran along the landing and banged loudly on the bathroom door. Are you all right, Paddington? She shouted. May we come in? Help, help, shouted Paddington. Please come in. I think I'm going to drown. Oh, Paddington. Judy leant over the side of the bath and helped Jonathan lift a dripping and very frightened Paddington on the floor. Oh, Paddington, thank goodness you're all right. Paddington lay on his back in a pool of water. What a good job I had my hat, he panted. Aunt Lucy told me never to be without it. But why on earth didn't you pull the plug out, you silly? Said Judy. Oh, Paddington looked crestfallen. I never thought of that. Jonathan looked admiringly at Paddington. Crikey, he said, fancy you making all this mess. Even I've made as much mess as this. I've never made as much mess as this. Paddington sat up and looked around. The whole of the bathroom floor was covered in a sort of white foam where the hot water had landed on his map of South America. It's a bit untidy, admitted. I don't really know how it got like that. Untidy? Julie lifted him to his feet and wrapped a towel around him. Paddington, we've all got a lot of work to do before we go downstairs again. Mrs. Bird sees this. I don't know what she'll say. I do, exclaimed Jonathan. She says it to me sometimes. Julie began wiping the floor with a cloth. Now just you dry yourself quickly in case you catch a cold. Paddington began rubbing himself meekly with the towel. I must say, he remarked, looking at himself in the mirror, I'm a lot cleaner than I was. It doesn't look like me at all. Paddington didn't look much cleaner than when he had first arrived at the Browns. His fur, which was really quite light in colour, was not dark brown as it had been, was standing out like a new brush, except that it was soft and silky. His nose gleamed and his eyes had lost all traces of the jam and cream. He was so much cleaner than when he arrived downstairs and entered the dining room some time later. Everyone pretended not to recognise him. The tradesman's entrance is at the side, said Mr. Brown, far from the paper. Mr. Brown put down her knitting and stared at him. I think you must have come to the wrong house, she said. This is number 32, not 34. Even Jonathan and Judy agreed there must be some mistake. Paddington began to get quite worried until they all burst out laughing and said how nice he looked now he was brushed and combed and respectable. They made room for him in a small armchair by the fire, and Mrs. Bird came in with another pot of tea and a plate of hot buttered toast. Now, Paddington, said Mr. Brown, when they were all settled, suppose you tell us all about yourself and how you came to Britain. Paddington settled back in his armchair, wiped a smear of butter carefully from his whiskers, put his paws behind his head and stretched out his toes towards the fire. He liked an audience, especially when he was warm, and the world seemed such a nice place. I was brought up in Darkest Peru, he began, by my Aunt Lucy. She's the one who lives in the home for retired bears in Lima. He closed his eyes thoughtfully. A hush fell over the room and everyone waited expectantly. After a while, when nothing happened, they began to get restless. Mr. Brown coughed loudly. Doesn't seem a very exciting story, he waited impatiently. He reached across and poked Paddington with his pipe. Well, I never, he said. I do believe he's fallen asleep. Okay, so we've been looking at Paddington. So let's just have a look where we got to before. So here's Paddington, and he got into trouble in the bath water, and he had some centavos. They are some kind of money. Here they are. That's a centavos. It's from Peru, I think. The name of the money there. And this one comes from United States of America with the eagle. That's $50. This one is from Russia. This is from United Kingdom with £1 coin. This is from India, 1 rupee. And this is from, this is when he climbed up to a stool by the window and looked out. So there he is there, in the garden. So what can you see from your window, Brian? Well, if you look from your window at the front, you can see Gunung Pancar, can't you? You can see the mountain. You can see your friends playing in the street. You can see our car. And then next question. Okay, so in Russia, they like to have bears as pets. So here we have a pet bear. big bear there. Imagine having that as a pet. And this is them playing with the bear in the garden, having dinner with the bear, and then doing some gardening, and then watching television, sitting on the sofa with the bear. So would you like to have a pet bear? It might be cause a lot of problems in the house. Might be a bit clumsy, like Paddington. And what did Paddington draw on the bathroom? Yeah, he drew a picture of the South America. And here's a picture of South America. There's Peru, there's Brazil, there's Argentina and Chile. So Paddington, if he wanted to go to England, he would have to go all the way round here on the boat and all the way up here, the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to England. But there is another way. You can. Sorry, let me just see that one again. So he used the shaving cream. And which route did he take? So he's here, and he would have gone through here all the way to England there. So here, there's a Panama Canal. You can go through there and all the way there. That's what it looks like, the Panama Canal. That's where the little bit here is a small space for boats to go through. It built a canal there. And then the capital city of Peru is Lima. And Aunt Lucy lives in a home for retired bears in Lima, in Peru. Okay, so I'll see you next time. Take care for now. Bye.